and this is something that's shipped with all of your Vectorcast installations. And we're going to go to page 286, which talks about target execution with VXWORKS 653. So in today's presentation, we're going to be following step by step everything that's being described in the manual. All right. So this example is going to be running with VXWORKS 653 version 2.2. So if we go to our manual now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to open up a VXWORKS target execution shell or a Deltman shell. So we'll request VXWORKS or Tornado to open this up for us through the Start menu. Okay, so now we have the shell. So if we look at our manual, the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a directory vcast_target_testing. So we'll just create that in this C drive root directory. And we'll just cd into that directory. So the next thing that we want to be able to do is to copy across the zip file that contains the special information that we need to be able to do the target testing with 653. So if you look at the manual, this is available inside your Vectorcast installation directory, inside the stub directory data Wind River. So we'll just copy that zip file vcast_single_partition.zip into our Vectorcast target testing directory. Now keep in mind the process that we're following here today is for running with VXSIM. So we'll now need to unzip this file. So we'll just ask Windows to extract the file. And what we want to do is we want to extract the contents of that zip file directly into the current directory that we're in. So we don't want that subdirectory there, vcast_single_partition. So we'll just delete that and say extract. And click Finish. So there we can now see the single partition directory. Right, so now we can go back to our VXWORKS Deltman shell and we'll cd into the single partition directory. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to run the make command. So we'll do make bsp equals simpc space cpu equals simnt space part addr equals 0x28000000 space create and hit return. So it's very important here to keep in mind that you shouldn't copy copy and paste from what's in the PDF, because sometimes the PDF has magic characters that don't come out exactly as we expect. So it's always best to manually type it in. So now that the first make is run, we'll rerun the second make, and now we just need to append mos build and pos build to the end of the make command and run that. And as per the instructions, we'll just say yes for everything in here. And there we go, so that make is going to run for us now. So this setup process is just a one-time only process. So we don't need to continuously do this, just the first time we're setting up our first environment. So now we're ready to set the environmental variables. So we'll do set vcast_psc_use psc_make_file_base_directory equals, and then we'll point it to our C drive vcast_target_testing /single partition directory. and hit return. And now we'll set the next directory, which is set vcast underscore psc underscore use underscore address underscore space equals true, and hit return. And now we need to create a directory where Vectorcast is going to store all of our I/O information. So we'll just create a subdirectory I/O underscore directory inside the vcast underscore target underscore testing directory. And then what we'll do is we'll put ourselves inside the vcast underscore target underscore testing directory. So now what we need to do is we need to start Vectorcast. So we'll just do start %vectorcast underscore dir /vcastqt.exe. And so this will launch Vectorcast with all of the VXWORKS environmental variables set and all the correct parts set up so we can find the compilers on the path. Alright, so now we have Vectorcast open. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go through and set some of the options in here so that it's set up correctly. So we'll go to Tools, and then we'll go to the C++ tab, go to Compilers, Wind River, VXWORKS 653 version 2.2, and we want to choose VXSIM, and this is a C++ example, so we'll choose the C++ option, like so. Alright. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up some configuration information telling us how to connect to the target. So we'll now go to the Target tab. And so in here the first thing that we need to set up is the board name. So this is going to be the first part of the name is going to be the name of the VXWORKS simulator. So I know the manual says VXSIM0, but because we have several simulators set up, we're going to set up a specific name, which is VXSIM0 underscore 653. And then we need to say @ and specify the host name of the PC. So we'll just open up our command prompt here and type host name, and that should give us the host name of the PC. And so it's VM VXWORKS. So we'll go back in here and just put VM VXWORKS. Alright, the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the I/O directory. So we'll just click this button here and it should just be the subdirectory from where we are. So I/O directory, and say choose. And hit OK now. Alright, so we're now almost ready to start creating our first environment. So we'll go through the wizard and say File, New C++ environment. And so the first step of the wizard should be set up for us because we've already done that through the Tools option. So there's nothing to set here. So we'll go to Name the environment, and so the example that we're doing today is the manager example, which is inside the tutorial directory of your Vectorcast installation. So we'll just say manager example underscore CPP, and we'll say the testing method. We're just going to do traditional testing, the build options. We'll choose level A coverage, and we'll also switch on white box. And we'll say locate source files, so we'll just tell Vectorcast where to find the source files for this example. So it should be in C drive, vcast, / and then 52G, which is our Vectorcast installation, tutorial, and then CPP. And we'll just click choose. There we go. Okay, and say next. And so now we can see the source files here, so we'll just pick one of these source files and say build. Alright, so now we'll let Vectorcast go through the process of analyzing our source code and building the environment and compiling up an executable that we can use to run on the simulator. And once we're ready to execute for the first time, so the first time we execute is when we have to work out the range information. So Vectorcast prompts us with a dialog. So the next thing that we need to do is we just need to set up the VXWORKS 653 simulator that we're going to use for running our test cases. So we'll just go to the Start menu here. And we'll open up Workbench. So we'll go to Wind River, Workbench 2.6 and open up Workbench. There we go. Let's just give it a minute to start up. And so once this is started up, we'll have to create a new target connection. So from the menu, we can just go to Target, New Connection, and we want to choose the VXWORKS 653 simulator example, and say Next. And we want to provide a custom simulator because we have one that's already been shipped with Vectorcast, so we'll just navigate to the directory where we extracted that zip file. So that will be in C drive, vcast, target testing, single partition, and then simpc single partition, and then integration, and there's the boot.txt, and we'll choose open. And we'll set the processor number to be 0 and say Next. We now just need to change the advanced target option, so we'll just change the -R to point to the IO directory. Choose Next. And choose Next again. And choose Next, nothing to change here. And Next. And so you'll notice that the connection name here, we want to change this to match what we put inside Vectorcast. So we'll change to vxsim0_653 and hit Finish. Okay. And so there we see our simulator booting up and running correctly. Excellent. So now we can go back to Vectorcast, and we'll click OK on the dialog. Just a sec here. We need to close this, and then we can see it. So we'll click OK. And so now Vectorcast will run the first target execution, which will give us the range data information for our environment. So there we go, that's completed successfully, and we should see the environment opening up in a second. Alright, so there we go. So there we can see our environment that's been built correctly. So we'll now go through and create our first test case. So we'll insert a test case for place order. And we'll start specifying just some table 1, seat 1, order. We'll have some chicken. Just a simple test case just to quickly confirm that this is running correctly. And then we'll want to set some stubbed values to check the values here. So we expect table to be 1 and data should be a size 1. And then expand this out here. And the check total should be 1 to 10. And then the order, we'll just go through and say index 1. And then just set the option for entree to be chicken. Just a sec, there we go, entree, and set that to be chicken. Okay, so there we have our first test case, so let's just save that. And we're now ready to execute, so we can just right click on the test case and say execute. And so what happens here is that just with the way VXWORKS works, we need to, once we've downloaded something, we need to restart the kernel so that it'll cleanse it of the previous image that was there. So once we reboot the simulator, it's now ready to go, so we'll just click OK, and it should run the test case for us. There we go. Oh, okay, we called the class with the null instance, so we'll just quickly go and update that. Should be under global. We choose manager instance and just run that test case again. Okay, so again, we'll need to reboot the target, so we'll just go back to the VXSIM and just reboot this again. Okay, and once it finishes, okay, we're ready to go, so we'll run the test case. And there you go. Okay, so that ran perfectly there. So, and if we click the coverage button, we should be able to see some code coverage as well as a result of that. So there we have our first test case that's been run on the real target, or on the simulator at least, with all of the coverage information being collected. So now we'll just duplicate this test case, just because we want to start taking a look at batch execution and talk about how we can make things a little bit easier in terms of not having to reboot the target. So we'll choose entree to be steak, and this time, so we'll just change this value here, so the expected should be steak as well, and the check total should be something between 1 and 14 now. And we'll save that. And execute it. So the traditional way Vectorcast works is that it does a new download every time we run a test case, just to keep the system in the same initial condition out of reset. So this can be a little bit troublesome, just because there isn't an easy way to automatically restart the VXWORKS kernel. We kind of have to do it manually as we're doing here. So we'll reboot it for the first test case execution, and we'll click OK once it's finished booting. And so Vectorcast will run the test case, and then when it's going to run the second test case, it'll prompt us again to reboot the target. We'll just run reboot again and wait for it to come back up, and we'll click OK, and now we can run the second test case. And so now what you'll see is that we've done a batch execution for several test cases, and we can view the reports and the combined code coverage and all of the nice things that we like to see with Vectorcast. So the thing is, we want to try and find a little bit of a smarter way to be able to run on the target without having to reboot it every time we do an execution. So if we go to the Tools Options menu, just wait for this to come up, and go to the Target tab. If you look down the bottom here, there's a checkbox for Use Compound Test for Batch Execution. This means that Vectorcast will only do one download for executing several test cases. So we'll just create a really complicated batch execution scenario here. So we have the two test cases that we already built, and we'll auto-generate some additional test cases. We'll now ask Vectorcast to execute this. Okay. So the thing is, we need to use a different execute command. We need to use the batch execute all command, which you can find under the test menu. So we'll tell Vectorcast to run. So we just now only need to reboot the board the first time that we start to run it. So we'll just come here and say reboot. And once it's finished rebooting, we'll click OK. And so now Vectorcast will go ahead and execute all of those test cases for us. And so what you'll notice is that this time we don't have to reboot the board after every test case is executed. It is done as a single execution. So this is a slightly faster way to work. Obviously, if one of the test cases crashes the board, then it will impact the rest of the execution. So it's not ideal if you're sort of developing some test cases and not sure of the stability of the code, but if you want to do some quick rapid testing, then switching the batch mode execution is a good way to work. So that's a quick demo of